enjoy so much about working in Immersive, even though there are lots of things that are very challenging and frustrating about it, is that I love that you can feel embodied, and that a lot of these different things are taking away from your phones and getting you to, like, you know, interact in different ways. Like even earlier we were using the eye control and the Toby what's it over here, and just like thinking about how we can experience our bodies in different ways, or that you're kind of bringing your full self into an experience where it feels really empowering and is far more participatory and interactive. And I think that's what I really enjoy about it. Like one thing I work on is a breath control game, and I'm really interested in how you can like use it to connect to yourself in a deeper way, or create new forms of self-knowledge or like awareness of how our bodies work. But I just think there's so many different applications. It can also feel really overwhelming. Like sometimes you go to these immersive conferences and it's like tourism, surgery, like advertising, and it's just like it can almost feel so much sometimes. But I think what I'm really excited about is those particular applications where the technology just works for that specific thing, and that it's really resonating with people, and that you can do things that are actually really impactful from it.
Well, it depends. It depends where you use it, how you use it, how you present it to the people, and who is your audience. Because sometimes it's very obvious that the final product or whatever you created is created in AI, but it's still fun because the concept behind it is nice, or because the humor is good. So there are many aspects. Sometimes it's like very, very obvious that some things are done in AI. Do you remember there was this Harry Potter Balenciaga thing that was like super, super popular, and it was very obvious that it was AI. It was not very high quality movie, but it was so funny. And it was so new that everybody loved it, and people still love it. So sometimes it doesn't need to look real. It doesn't need to be very close to reality, although a lot of times it is. Sometimes even I cannot distinguish the AI product from the real one. So yeah, I think it doesn't matter much, as long as the concept and the idea is good, and it looks good. It's okay if it looks like AI.
I feel like art is a nuanced undertaking. It's a nuanced endeavor, right? So that nuance is something that I've so far seen no evidence of AI being able to replicate. A kind of nuance and ingenuity that we as human beings bring. Yes, it's being trained on data, the output that human beings have, from scripts to books to images, video, and so on. That's the output of our efforts. So it's very good at replicating another output by synthesizing some of these things. But really, it's just all it's doing is it's the simplest terms is that it's a case of statistics and probability with very large data sets that it can process with your input. And the more input you give it, like if I give it a bit of text and an image for reference, I'm helping to narrow the range that it picks from. The more information I give it, it narrows down to its data set. But really, that's not the same as the nuance and ingenuity that we do when we, say, go through life and we spend 10 years inspired by other artists, and then we feel the need to express ourselves in the same way as we hit our teenage years or something, and we're trying to do the nuanced work that reflects our life's experience. It's a very different process to an AI coming up with an output. So I don't think it replaces artists and human beings of ingenuity and nuance in the way we express ourselves. That's very different to people using that same process and skill set for a commercial space. Because the whole thing about the commercial world is you've got to get there faster, quicker, and I work in entertainment, so there's every year we see a huge growth in demand for more and more content. How else can you meet that demand if you don't work smarter? And this is the smartest bit of technology to come along to automate a lot of those tasks. So our challenge as entertainers and creatives is balancing the nuance and the personal expression with practical aspects of having to deliver something in the commercial space as well. So I think you're going to have to work with AI, not be replaced.
Absolutely, it's here.
Yes, yeah.
As a creative, I kind of realized that this is going to happen already in 2018, 19, and which was also why I started thinking of, should I still do design or this and that, and I want to see how this is going to develop. But currently, I mean, we're doing like a hacker house in East Denver, and I've generated the entire visual identity with like a doll. And with my craft and my capabilities, I could have never done that. So for me, generative AI is actually a pretty good thing, because in terms of like commercial photography, people won't, pardon my French, but people will not be forced to produce crap anymore, even though, there's a demand for it. But in my opinion, as a, photographer, like, I don't think anybody should even do that. Okay, people are going to lose jobs, fine, but nobody should even be doing that. It's a shit job, right? So I think, in a lot of ways, this is going to be positive, because at the end of the day, you're going to have a higher emphasis on an idea and like on the creative concept rather than a craft. Because, very often, like, I work like a lot of NFT platforms, and a lot of these tech people would say, oh, I think that's cool because I can't draw. And it's like, well, that's not really an opinion. Like, you like that just because you can't do it. And, you like something doesn't mean that piece is good, like whatever, right? So I think it's not necessarily a bad thing that all of these things are going to be flushed out. And like, finally, I mean, people are going to have to think harder to be creative, like, sure. And I think that social media in itself created this whole homogenous content and types of content, and everything's so saturated. And as they say in Fight Club, everything is a copy of a copy of a copy. So let's hope that maybe, on one side, you're going to get propaganda content, which will be very concerning. But like, on the other hand, I think people will have to try harder to be creative, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
So in VR, you're working often in Unreal Engine, sometimes Unity. You're creating virtual environments, you're creating virtual characters. You are rigging pathways where your player or your viewer can move through, or sometimes you have freedom of movement to move around in the space. So when you're working in virtual production, you have a lot of the same elements. You have the environment up behind you that can either be a three-dimensional environment or a two-dimensional plate, as we call it. And you have characters sometimes in the background. We also use a virtual camera. Virtual cameras are a unique concept, perhaps, to the film industry when they first start getting into a virtual production environment. You have, say, a 3D printed camera. Very often they'll put lead weights in it or something, so it feels like the actual camera. But what it's doing is it's moving the camera in the game engine. So that's, I think, a fascinating way that we're seeing these same technologies applied to much larger, productions. And instead of, getting inside of your headset and looking at this world, individually, we are also seeing museums, installations, exhibitions. I think they had something even at COP28 in Dubai, where you have, say, a virtual production wall, and then you have a VR environment. Previously, this would have been done with projection in a cave sort of style, but with LED, you can actually build these worlds around you and then bring many people into that space. So ultimately, what this looks like is the merging of the digital and the physical worlds, which is,
Phygital.
Great word. I hated it at first, and then it grew on me because it's inevitable.
Yes.
This is really ultimately what we're seeing, and like camera companies now are going to have to actually make a setting on a cinematic camera to have a switch to the virtual camera, so that the director can look and then see, here's what I'm filming, and then switch.
The tracking inside the world.
So they're actually going to have to start adding these features into the products as well.